morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Promise and Peril, How Augmented Analytics Can Help CPGs and Retailers Navigate the Post-COVID World. My name is Alarie Swarajagopal, and as Senior Editor of CGT, I'll be your moderator for today. We'll get started in just a few moments, but while we wait for some more people to join, I need to cover a few housekeeping items. First off, all the materials in the webcast have been reviewed by our editorial staff. The views of the speakers and their organizations are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of CGT, RIS News, or their owner, Ensemble IQ. Now, as time allows, we try to make these webinars as interactive as possible, so please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions throughout the 20 minutes, located on the left side of your screen down below the presenter headshots. You can also use the same Q&A section if you have any technical questions. Finally, if you want to review or share the webinar later, a replay will be available within about 2 hours of our conclusion today. So let's get into the topic of discussion. COVID-19 has demonstrated to many CPGs and retailers that they can't operate with an old mindset. They need to learn quickly and move fast to come out healthier at the end. With the power of augmented analytics, they can make sense of unprecedented data and quickly adapt to new consumer behavior patterns. To help us discuss this further, I'm delighted to introduce our subject matter experts for today's session. Our first speaker is Ada Gill, CPG product owner for AnswerRocket, most recently by way of Unilever as its marketing director. Ada will be joined today by Pete Reilly, co-founder and SVP Sales and Marketing for AnswerRocket. Ada and Pete, thank you both for joining us today. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'd like to turn things over to Ada. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our webinar, Promise and Peril, How Augmented Analytics Can Help CPGs and Retailers Navigate the Post-COVID World. To begin with, I want to start with a quick introduction. I'm Ada Gill, a CPG product owner at AnswerRocket, with a CPG marketing experience in global enterprises, working at Coca-Cola and Unilever, spending many years building brands, driving growth and profitability, and working very closely with retailers to build and execute plans. The challenges that the industry is facing during the COVID pandemic is definitely raising the bar of the capabilities which are required to manage a healthy CPG brand and a retail environment. And this webinar is an opportunity to learn about augmented analytics and how it can support your business during those days. Essentially, we're evident during this pandemic to a drastic change in shopping and consumption behaviors that were forced on people. Some of those would have happened regardless, but it is so drastic now that we might see a change of 10 years happening just in one. And there are two sides to that story. On the positive side, we can see, for example, some brands that enjoy unexpected trial when consumers are taking everything available on shelf. Online and other retailers are growing and some new categories that enjoy a very strong demand. But on the flip side, you can also see some brands that might lose loyal consumers to competitors. We can see out of stocks and massively decline in some channels like out of home. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, how can you leverage those opportunities today and prevent or maybe minimize those risks for you in the future? So from an analysis perspective, when trying to make a decision in an unknown and a rapidly changing environment, a key formula for success is a combination of knowledge, constantly analyzing the data to rebuild your knowledge, speed of analysis. You should aim to get an answer and insights in a matter of minutes, not days or weeks. And lastly, combining that with agility in your planning and the actions that you can adjust fast if this is required. So taking this into consideration, I'm sure you're probably asking yourself, how can I achieve that? Insights in minutes, tracking trends, rebuilding knowledge, agile planning, where there is just so much data to analyze, different scenarios, and things that just happened yesterday may not be relevant for tomorrow. So key here is going to be automation. You should not let the analysis resources become a gap between you and key insights of what's happening today in the market. There are AI automation tools that can help you run analyses from different data sources at speed and generate automated insights from the data for you. if you leverage that, you can actually flip your 80-20, and instead of spending the time running the analysis, it will free your time to plan and execute based on those insights. And that is exactly what augmented analytics is all about. It is leveraging AI technologies to run the analysis and generate insights, and letting the human come up with the best approach and action. And technologies today are so advanced that actually in a matter of weeks, you can have those reports running automatically on your data. So augmented analytics is really at your fingertips if you want. Let's bring this to life in some example that I selected here for a webinar. We will discuss how to drive cross-functional collaboration and data sharing, recovering shelf presence, managing market share, adapt to new shopping behavior, and how to plan better for the new norm. So starting with collaboration and cross-functional and data sharing. If you're now participating in frequent meetings of production planning, campaigns planning, or promotion planning, for example, you probably have a growing need to better understand what are the driving forces of your business to make accurate plans during those times. While CPG and retailers are tracking a large variety of data, different parts of the organization, like marketing, finance, supply chain, etc., are working in silos in many cases when it comes to data, which makes it hard to quickly collaborate and gather information. We heard it from many CPGs customers before, but the need for collaboration in terms of data is more important now since questions are more complex. For example, when to start a campaign is heavily dependent if your consumers now are overstocked or not overstocked. Your production rate needs to be balanced with the expected demand and cost of goods that are rising now. And those are just very quick examples. So there are some AI technologies that can support you in getting fast access to cross-functional information very quickly, like the one that I'm presenting here, that can create for you automatically an holistic metric hierarchy of what are the drivers of your performance, so you can evaluate what's happening to your business very quickly. If you gather that information and your knowledge, your focus should be first on creating an holistic understanding of what are your top line and your margin growth drivers. I would recommend to really focus on what's driving your demand in light of your recent trends, because the drivers of demand are changing very rapidly. And once you have that, put your efforts to really drive a collaborative planning process to ensure the success of your business in the future. Second focus area is about shelf presence. I selected it to emphasize the importance of analysis speed that you can achieve with automated analysis. While we're not sure about the long run, there is almost a certainty that even without a second wave, the short-term consumer behavior is going to be very different than before, and that shelf presence is going to continue to be more important than ever. So from a manufacturer perspective, this is your time to be proactive in discussions with retailers. And for successful proactive actions during a competitive environment, timing and speed is going to be key. So the faster you have the data and the insights, the faster you can initiate those discussions with the retailer. And when it comes to shelf space, for an example, review the changes of consumption behavior in the category and for your brand, the changes in share, in basket size, in different retailers, etc., to actually prove your capability and the importance of your portfolio moving forward. It is also very important now to look together with the retailer on your assortment and evaluate if you have any new needs that are coming and adjust your portfolio based on that. Talking about the competitive marketing, there is another point that is even should be higher on your radar, which is market share. There are dozens of studies around the world that are proving that market share loss during a crisis or recession is very difficult to recover. And why is it so critical now? It is during the COVID-19 period, it was and still is an opportunity for new consumers to try new brands if their favorite brand is even out of stocks. And those unexpected trials can be a positive long-term effects on those available brands. And vice versa, brands may lose their loyal consumer for a similar reason. If a brand is out of stock or not priced correctly during those times, you can lose your loyal consumers. So managing your market share during this roller coaster of the last few months and in the future will require from you the ability to analyze share potential to really the details. Utilize your analysis power to analyze performance and pinpoint where you under-indexed and why. And again, I think tracking penetration and consumption is a key point here to actually complete the puzzle of why you're gaining or losing penetration. Another opportunity that you have, if you analyze the data, is to look at low-hanging fruits of market share gain potential that you have, and make sure that you're not missing those opportunities under the sea of data that you have. There are some algorithms today that are available to support looking at complex market structure and point you to the core issue as quickly as possible. I think that using those algorithms can really free your time from analyzing to actually take actions and act as fast as possible. Other than managing the day-to-day, there is also a need to look at future trends in retailer and adjust your future plans accordingly. And online is an example of a key trend that will continue to take a more dominant role in the future. So let's take a look at the growth of online, for example. In the US, 13% of the consumers are buying more groceries online. Those are numbers from April. And there is a numbers from March that is saying that actually there was an increase in 91% of online grocery sales in the US. But let's take a look at Curbside, which is another example that is very relevant here. In the US, 14% use Curbside pickup more often now for grocery shopping. And after stay-at-home restriction ended, 40% of them are saying that they will continue to use Curbside more often and are expecting to buy 50% more of their groceries this way. And here is a quote that I like from the Nestle CEO that is saying that the COVID is a breakthrough for online sales and food and beverages, because people that previously would not think about buying groceries online discover how convenient it is now. So there will definitely be more evolution in the near future, and the behavior will somehow flatten maybe in the future. But the trend is here to stay, and the question is, are you going to enjoy it or not? In terms of your focus, first, I would recommend focusing on understanding the motivations of those new consumers and try to use some qualitative research to understand what are the drivers. To build a very strong channel strategy, include those insights in your omni-channel strategy to build a very strong plan. And there are also some more sophisticated algorithm that I can support you here if you want to get into more details to understand how cross-channel consumption behavior and what are the mixes, etc. My last point is about business planning. If you're working with CPG, you're probably starting your 2021 planning now. But those new times require a very different planning mindset. We are facing a continuous period of dramatic change from small to large. Some of them are expected because this is just the human behavior, and some of them are out of your control. So the role of everybody that is working with CPG should be equipped with a mindset of managing a continuous change. And when it comes to planning, my recommendation is to work on an 80 to 24 months ahead, but with a short periods when different decisions can actually be made. Preparing a few scenarios of what if for the future is going to be critical here for your success. I also think that predicting the future is going to be very hard, but learning from the past and what happened, for example, in other countries that are ahead of us in the crisis, or what happened in other economic crises might really help you to navigate through the planning process. So from an analysis perspective, it's going to be very heavily planning process, and there are critical actions that we cover that can help you succeed here. With that, I will let Pete Reilly continue and further discuss with you augmented analytics technology.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Appreciate your insights there. And obviously, your experience at both Unilever and Coke really shines through here in terms of the approach that folks should be thinking about, both in terms of the opportunities and sort of the challenges ahead. And just to wrap up in terms of how can augmented analytics help, and what is that exactly? And so we work with a lot of large consumer packaged goods companies, and what we find is that they have this approach to doing analysis about sort of what's happening in the market, what's happening with the brand, try to find different opportunities. It's very manual. And you guys are probably all fairly familiar with this. I just want to know how my category did maybe last month, and you're hunting down different data sources, putting them in spreadsheets, filtering to find what's growing, what's shrinking, to try to put together your story. And what it usually ends up happening is you sort of run out of time. So like, I've looked at what I can look at, and or what I know how to look at, and you put together your PowerPoint with some Excel and some text, describing the situation. You do the best you can. You sort of present it and sort of put your actions together and move on. And there's a ton of opportunity, we think, and we're actually implementing these things to automate a lot of those workflows, and to bring the power of AI and machine learning to allow you to more exhaustively investigate the data, to allow you to much more quickly, within minutes versus weeks, potentially understand what's really driving sort of growth or market share changes, or other dynamics in the environment. That once you understand that, as a human, you can then turn around and take action. So taking away, as Ada showed on that one slide, let's take away the drudgery of sort of combing through the data, take away maybe even some of the bias, maybe even some of the skills that you need to do that. And let's allow humans to do the things they're really good at. What should we be doing? How do we grow this brand given sort of this situation? And as Ada said, we're in this situation where we're seeing 10 years of change in 1 year. And so increasingly, the companies that are really quickly understanding what's happening, what are those dynamics, those are the ones that are going to have advantage. And there are technologies around augmented analytics that can really help provide that acceleration and that competitive advantage. One of the things that we've learned too is there's lots of solutions out there now where you can sort of search your data. We've actually, AnswerRocket started doing that. We're actually world class on that. But increasingly too, it's important to not sort of rely on the human to go find the insight, but more to have the machine bring the insight to the human. And as we're all sort of used to this idea of looking at Instagram or Facebook or wherever, or Twitter, and just sort of getting instant news. And so it's really important that an augmented analytics solution not only just sort of be able to answer your question and produce a chart that sort of has some insights on it, but to actually go find those insights and present those to you in a way that's relevant to you so that you can take action without even having to ask the question. And that really starts to move the typical model from this reactive, hey, I got to get data, I got to analyze it, then I'm going to consume it, I'm going to figure out what to do, to shifting it to, oh, here's the content on what's important to me. This is this gives me that 80% sort of head start. Now, what should we be doing, and what should we be acting on to sort of drive our opportunity in the market? So with that, appreciate everybody taking the time to visit with us today. I don't know if we have any time for questions, but certainly if we do, we can open it up for Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Pete, and thank you, Ada. We have time for maybe a quick question each, so I'll jump right into them. And if you haven't submitted one yet, now would be the right time to do so using that Q&A function. Again, if we can't get to it right away, we'll definitely follow up. So, Pete, while I have you, I'll start with you. Do you know of any leading CPG companies that have adopted AI for analysis, and how are they using it?
Yeah, I do. We're actually working with companies like Coty, and well, actually Nielsen is not only a partner but a customer of ours, and some other really large CPGs. I would tell you that most of them are starting to look at this, and so it shifted from probably just a couple of years ago to people were just sort of getting dashboards up and running to really what I would say is over the last year or so, most of the large CPGs are looking at, all right, how do we go to that next level, and how do we automate these processes?
Right. And Ada, I'll just before we go, you know, with all the change we've seen in the past few months, it's hard to determine what to focus on first as a category manager. So, how can companies prioritize what problems to address first?
Yeah, I think technology can really help you today to understand what are the key drivers that are causing your decline, and especially they can highlight for you what can impact your performance on the long term. And once those are available for you, you can actually try and focus on what are the drivers, what's causing that, and focus on fixing those areas.
Great. I'm afraid we're running out of time, so I'd like to just mention again, if we didn't get your question, we'll be sure to have someone follow up. Ada and Pete, thank you again for giving us your subject matter expertise. And I'd also like to thank AnswerRocket for sponsoring today's webinar. Finally, thank you to our attendees for spending some time to be with us today. We hope you found this session to be valuable. And the webinar recording will be available on demand shortly on consumergoods.com. So thank you again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.